sovereignty and free will. We are to rejoice and relax in the wonderful truth that God is sovereign and good.
This principle relates to a mystery. It's a mystery I can't explain. How God could be sovereign and yet give us free will. How God could be sovereign over the affairs of man and yet hold us responsible. But the Bible teaches it. And we see how God is sovereign and yet allows free will and responsibility and for actions here in what is happening in Israel and in Judah. And Isaiah talks about it. He reports on this. Look at Isaiah 9:12. In all this, his anger is not removed and his hand is still raised to strike. Now we know that that was repeated 4 times in the previous chapters. But what he's referring to here is God's judgment on Assyria, and here he goes on to talk about it. And here's part of the mystery. But when the Lord finishes all his work against Mount Zion and Jerusalem, he will say, I will punish the king of Assyria for his arrogant acts and the proud look in his eyes. In other words, what he said in the previous verse is, my hand of judgment will come on you in Israel and Judah through the Assyrians. My hand. God's sovereign hand. And then after he judges his people through Assyria, he turns around and says, I will punish the king of Assyria for what he did of his own free will. Go figure. It's a mystery, but it's true. And throughout the Scriptures, we see this kind of dynamic between God's sovereignty and the free will that he's given to us. And if we try to explain it, we tend to go in one direction or the other. But we have to live what I call an antinomy, 2 truths that we can never reconcile on this earth. It's beyond us. Where God's thinking begins, ours ends, and goes far beyond our ability to comprehend this great eternal truth. One of the most significant illustrations of this, I think, is with Joseph. And you remember the story. He was sold into Egypt by his brothers. It was horrible what they did to him. And he went down into Egypt and he suffered as a young man, just 17, 18 years of age. You remember he was sold as a slave. He was falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He was thrown into prison. For 2 years he languished there. And ultimately he was restored, and through a miracle he became really the prime minister of Egypt. And God used him in a marvelous way to save his own people, to bring his father, Jacob, and the sons, his brothers, the ones who had sold him into Egypt, to bring them and all their families down to Egypt to avoid the famine. Gave him the best, the king, with the king's blessing, really. Joseph gave them the best part of the land of Egypt. Now, when Jacob died, the sons were frightened. And they were living with guilt because they knew what they had done. And they thought to themselves, and Joseph heard about it, that they were fearful that now that Jacob had died, that Joseph would get even. And he called them together. And this statement is quite incredible. I call it using evil for good, here in Genesis chapter 50. This is his response to his brothers. He said, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? In other words, he's saying, I'm not going to get even with you, especially because I know the ultimate purpose. And he went on to explain it. You planned evil against me. God planned it for good, to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. I'll try to explain that. How the great God, the holy God of the universe, could take evil. Didn't cause the evil. God didn't cause these brothers to do what they did. God doesn't cause any one of us to sin. But God can take what we do that is sinful and make it work together for good. And that's what Romans 8:28 is all about. Here you have Joseph's experience generalized and applied in the New Testament when Paul wrote about God's eternal purpose. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, those who are called according to his purpose. And I'll be honest, in my humanness, I don't understand this totally. I can't explain it totally. But the fact is that it's true. God is sovereign. At the same time, he's given us free will, and he holds us responsible for our actions. Look at this question for application. Though we cannot understand this great mystery regarding God's sovereignty and our free will, why should it be a very reassuring truth for all believers? Think about that. Here's the reassuring thing. We are secure in Jesus Christ. God says that. And we can trust what he said. He will never leave us or forsake us once we're in Christ. And I love Paul's testimony. When he was in prison the first time, he said, "For me, living is Christ, dying is gain." And then the second imprisonment, he knew that he was going to die, for sure. This is what he said, "For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time for my departure is close." In other words, he knows that he's going to die at the hands of Nero. "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And there is reserved for me in the future the crown of righteousness." And there he's not talking about salvation. It's implied that he's talking about salvation because earlier we said, "For me to live is Christ, to die is gain." Here he's talking about the reward for being faithful, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not only to me, but to all those who have loved his appearing. It's a great truth. So here's the principle that comes out of this passage and the whole Bible. We're to rejoice and relax in the wonderful truth that God is sovereign and he's good.